The world is a beautiful but challenging place to live. And let's face it, life hits hard sometimes. So if you find your hopes and dreams and mental well-being needs a boost, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to Inspire Us with your host, J. Paul Nadeau, a former hostage negotiator turned motivational speaker and acclaimed author of Take Control of Your Life. And now, here's your host, J. Paul Nadeau.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inspire Us. Today, I have a man on my show who has done something so amazing. I know you're going to be completely inspired by what he's done. He started something called the Red Fred Project, in which he gives children who are facing life-threatening illnesses the opportunity to be seen differently by the world and to leave their mark behind. So without going into too much description, I've got to say that this interview gave me goosebumps. And what Dallas Graham has done is nothing short of remarkable. And so without any further delay, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Dallas Graham. Dallas Graham, welcome to Inspire Us.
Thank you, Paul. I'm looking to be inspired by you. So
I think it's the other way around. My listeners and I are going to be absolutely inspired by you. I read your incredible biography. You're a fun person, and you've got a way with words. I just love what some of the things that you've said about this. You're a 40-something, Salt Lake City, creative, interested in books, birds, stories, kindness, photography, letters, yoga, natural parks, punctuation marks, giant eggs, compassion, and it just goes on and on. And the work that you've been doing as an independent publisher, working with children, but not only children, the Red Fred Project is something I know that is near and dear to your heart. And I would love for you to share what that's all about, because when I read it, it moved me. And I'm still feeling goosebumps after reading what it is that you do with these amazing children.
Thank you. The Red Fred Project was inspired by the life of a 10-year-old boy whose name is Mitchell. And if you see our logo, there's a little shape of a bird with a star above. And I always say Mitchell is our North Star. He was the son of a friend of mine who was only 10 years old. And when I found out that he had a diagnosis called Duchenne muscular dystrophy, Red Fred, who's the avian character that shows up in all of our books and whom after the project is named, Red Fred sat on my shoulder and in a kind of unusual circumstance said, Dallas, we should probably talk to him. Why don't we ask him if he could write a book for the whole world, what he would want it to be about? And as a designer and a writer, like, books aren't rocket science to me, but solving someone's diseases and curing it is rocket science, and it's still rocket science for a lot of people. But that doesn't mean this little boy didn't have a great story. So we started into it. And actually, Mitchell died March 2nd, about 8 years ago. But as soon as he died, Paul, his little life cracked my brain open and my heart open. And I saw this amazing populace on a planet whom I term children who live in extraordinary circumstances. And that means they have rare diseases or life-threatening illnesses. And I think they have stories, really beautiful stories to share. And the books that we create with these kids are fictitious children's books, heavy in metaphor, heavy in like the imaginative space. So the child creates and wonders, and then I bring my professional skill set and produce a book. And then we high five, we have book signings for these kids, and we sell our books all over the world, and we influence people through the imaginative lived space of these children.
That is, well, that's beyond words. I'll tell you, I'm speechless, really, and I don't usually get speechless. How beautiful is that? You are preserving a legacy for them. Really, they get to share their stories that will live on and on. and people will get to read their brilliance in the pages, because I would imagine that they've got a lot to offer. And if you're opening their creative side, which is beautiful, like writing a book and encouraging someone to write a book, that's hard to get somebody to write books.
Yeah.
But are these kids really anxious to do it, or are some of them a little bit reluctant?
All the kids that end up doing it, we once someone or an organization pairs me with them and we have a discovery call, all the kids want to do it. All the kids know what children's books are, right? Because they're children and they know what that book is, that genre. But some of them have actually been more inclined to say, when I grow up, I want to be a writer. Some just are like, no, I just want to do it. And both and the spectrum in between, I'm like, great, we can do it. You just have to provide me the stardust, which comes through a series of workshops and interviews and worksheets that I'm going to give you. It's not going to be hard, but then I'm going to take all that, and then I do the big adult stuff, which I can do that, right? And then we work together, and then we make this really powerful echo of the essence of this person, this child, in their book. And again, it's a fictitious children's book that uses little bird characters in all the books, and these birds teach wonderful lessons.
Oh, and so every book kind of teaches a child a lesson and talks a little bit about the child's life.
No, not necessarily their child's life. I just say it's just so they have all these little bird characters, and we design a specific bird character for them with a comma we've never used, because all of our birds are made of commas from different typefaces. I have this whole design process, and they name their bird, and then they decide the cast who's in it. But then, like most great stories, their character, their little totem, their little bird goes on a journey. And what's been fascinating to watch with all of these kids that I've worked with, they're usually, the main themes of the books are forgiving your friends, loving your parents, getting along with your adopted sibling, just being brave. So these books they teach just general, beautiful human life lessons, but through these wonderful, colorful little birds that have this fun little story. And then at the end of every book, there's 2 lessons, 2 sunshine bursts, where the child actually, in their own words, gives 2 lessons to the readers to remember their beautiful life lessons. So it's just a really wonderful thing. The 32 pages, hardbound, and we sell them on our website. And we also get to send a royalty check for the books that get purchased, because the kids work, in that sense, they work to make it. So it's really fun to send them actually a royalty check and say, do whatever you want with the money. And it's just a really delightful thing to be involved in. But I always tell people, but you will actually never know how great it is until you read one of the books.
Oh,
They're just terrific. They're just amazing.
I can't wait to get my hands on those books. Really, I do. I'm a writer myself, and what you're doing is just incredible. And you're leaving something for them and for their families to cherish forever. How wonderful is that? Let me ask you then, with these children, how long would it take from the beginning of the process to the end of the process with the child?
That's a great question, and thanks for asking. One of the first things that informs it is the severity of their circumstances. And that, again, is a spectrum of each of the different kids I've worked with. Due to the seriousness sometimes of their illness, or the closeness of which we're working, we have to get it done really quickly. We don't have time to send this through executives to decide somewhere, some editor to do something. And I have a close pool of people that assist me with that. So I've done it though. I've done it within a month and a half. And it's not a drag and drop kind of thing. We actually build and illustrate, but there are some design components that now I've been so familiar with, as I've been doing it for 7 years. There's an economy to time and process and getting it done. Plus my printers, who are we have book printers here in Salt Lake City. We have a great relationship, so they know they're going to turn around as fast as they can. that being said, it is pretty intense when the book starts going. It's like we're going fast to get it done. Because again, sometimes depending on the severity of the illness or their life circumstances, we just have to be very highly attuned, and we just need to get it done. So I've done it within a month, and then sometimes the one I'm working with right now for my DC storyteller, it's taken a few months because she's had to go back and forth between the hospital a lot. She's at Johns Hopkins, and she has this very rare condition, and so the reality, right, is like they aren't always able to meet or talk or follow through. So when I'm fleshing out the manuscript, where I need some insight, like right now we need the title of the book for her book, and I'm pretty sure we've nailed it, but we're trying to get in touch on Friday. But guess what? She might not be able to make it on Friday because she's, her health is just like this.
Right.
And so I just share that because that's the realness of what's going on and the realness that sort of touches the project. So again, her book is mostly done, but I haven't designed a cover yet because I still don't know the title. So I was on with her mom just 2 days ago. She goes, "I'm so sorry. It's been taking us." And I'm like, "Don't apologize at all." She's like, we just, like, what these families go through, what these kids go through, the physicality of living every day, just to do things, just to get here and there. I mean, to eat, to, some of these children are just, it's a real haul. So we have to also be very open and compassionate about deadlines, but we try to just be very efficient with everything. Does that give you an idea?
It certainly does. Thank you very much for explaining that. And yes, I wouldn't have imagined it any different because every circumstance is, as you said, very different. And when you're dealing with someone, sometimes they have good days or better days or bad days and worse days. And to work that in professionally for the child and for everyone else, I think that's amazing. How old are these children generally, Dallas? What age group of children do you work with?
6 to 17 years old.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah,
And
so it's broad range. It's a broad range.
oh, and I would imagine the story. Well, I mean, from a 6-year-old story to a 16 or 17-year-old story is like amazing. How do you find the children, or how do they find you? How did that start?
There isn't a red telephone, just so you know and your listeners know. There isn't a direct line other than people can contact you through my website. But typically it's through sometimes healthcare professionals, healthcare providers. There's an organization called Child's Life that exists it's called Child's Life Program, and it exists in a lot of children's hospitals. And these incredible people actually have jobs to oversee the entire welfare of the child. So sometimes they've heard about me, and sometimes it's just people who saw it on social media or someone else they knew. So in a variety of ways, I always just say it's the right way. Whenever we find them, how do we find them is the right way is how we found them. And luckily there hasn't been too much of a bottleneck also of me having to say no to people. Because right now the goal, and it's been from the beginning, is that we have a national goal of 50 books, 50 children, 50 states, 50 different book signings, 50 different extraordinary circumstances. And so we're per state, I'm selecting a storyteller from each state. So that also helps it narrow down a little bit.
Wonderful. And book signings must be really exciting. I'm just trying to imagine, do you fly out to the different locations to be with the children? Yes. Wow.
So whenever we start from the inception, I get to the city, and we have a period of like a week where it's just high intensity workshopping, and we have very specific things that we're doing each day. And then sometimes local people in the city are helping me as well. Sometimes film crews come out. Sometimes I have a designer or a writer that I've connected with and I want their help. So then we do these very structured workshops. Once I have all that content, normally I would fly them back to Salt Lake City, produce the book, get it printed, ship them back. And then when we have the book signings, I fly back and we have the most extraordinary day on the planet Earth. which is a book signing, and these children sit there, Paul, as authors,
Ugh,
not as children defined by their illness
right.
or their disease, which happens a lot, and they're not trying to do it. We're not necessarily trying to do that, but that's where they get stuck a lot. So the Red Fred Project really is seeing them in a space that they have never been seen before, and that is as an author, as a storyteller, as a contributor to their community. That's what these books are. They're contributions. They are art. It's like any of us who are creating something for others. And many times I know what people mean, like, oh, this must be great for the kid to express, to share. Yes. And do you know who else it heals?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Everyone who reads it. Everyone who reads the book ends up having an epiphany, like they see the world differently now because they were brought into the world through this author and how they want to see things. So it's really amazing, and we get to celebrate them with their community. And then I've had kids go on and talk in their communities about story making, book making, not about their diseases, but about like how to make a book. How did you do it? How long did it take? Why did you talk about this? Why did you decide this topic? Why did you want to share these lessons with people? So hopefully, and I've seen it over and over, but the Red Fred Project is trying to expand the idea and the reality of who these children are. And it's just been, obviously, the more I do it, the less I know. But yet I kind of only know a few things now, but they just teach me amazing things, the kids and their families and their communities. I mean, everyone learns.
Well, this is it. I'm thinking that you've been doing this for 7 years, and every child leaves you with a couple of messages and a couple of tips and some different ideas. You must be full of knowledge now, because how many authors have you worked with who have told you what their world is, or what they're thinking, and the little tips that make sure that you get along with so-and-so, get along with your parents, all that kind of stuff. I think you'd be full of knowledge with these authors, these amazing authors. And I'm just imagining what a book signing would be like. You're so right. The focus is not on their disease or on what their suffering is. It's on their creativity. And that must, for someone who, I don't know what it would be like to be looked upon if I had a terminal illness. I don't know how people would treat me. I'm imagining I got an idea how that would be, and you really don't want people looking at you that way. And what you're doing is you're creating an opportunity for these children to be seen as people who are giving gifts to the community, authors. And it's kind of cool. You're an author, I'm an author, and people, they kind of look up to authors and say, oh, you wrote a book? Wow, you did that. And as you said, the questions in the community, how did you come up with this story? What was your inspiration for that? And to put the spotlight on someone that way is just absolutely, it warms my heart. Dallas, it warms my heart what you do. It's so much, because you are leaving them with a feeling, a sensation of accomplishment, and something that will last forever in their families' hands and in the community's hands. And they'll make their way to libraries as well, where people will be able to take a look at these books 100 years from now and say, this was written by a child and it's so cool, and look at this. I think the journey that you're on is amazing, and how it all began for you too, with the death of your of a friend's child, and that bond that just exploded your head and said, wait a minute, there's something here. Wow. What?
I mean, I know you know exactly what I'm feeling. And I know your listeners know. All of us have had people close to us who have a child that's been dealt some really tough cards. All of us have. And we all know, what's really wonderful is that we all know that feeling. We all know the feeling of like, what do we do? Like, what can we do? Now, and in a way, there are certain things we actually can't do, but I think that's also when we're in a space of true being alignment of who we are and with who other people are, I just think that Chris and Natalie, who are my friends who said yes about Mitchell, said yes to me, because I'm like, I'm not his uncle. I'm not his dad. I hadn't seen them in 20 years, but they trusted me, and they know I'm an adult who cares about children, who believes that Mitchell's 10 years on this planet are equal to my 40 something. The coefficient in front of our ages is exactly the same. And so that means whatever I've gleaned in my 40 something years, it's equal to however much he's gleaned in his 10. We've both lived 100% of our lives, 100%. Mm-hmm. So why can't we find stories from these incredible people, especially of those that are living in such, the physicality sometimes of life when you're under duress really does something to expand the human mind and spirit. And so that's also why I'm really intrigued, because these people, these children who have gone through harrowing things that most of us have not gone through, and yet they still persist, and they are still resilient, and they still go at it every day. That's why I'm like, I totally want to know you. I totally would love to understand how you see this world, because I'm pretty sure it would just expand me if I could understand a little bit how you view things. How did you make that decision? How do you stay resilient? What do you tell yourself when you're in the hospital and the pain is breaking windows inside of you? How do you do it? And then they tell me. I'm like, great, let's put that out into the world. Let's let other people read that. How great is that? Like, how great is that we can influence and share that kind of messaging?
I absolutely love what you just said, and it's just so true. I don't know if you can do this, but can you describe what it's like when you hand the child their book for the first time?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just want to swallow the sun and swim thousands of miles just with two hands and scream up and down and grow a lion's tail and just roar for them. Because I love to see them seeing they've done something big. And, when we get to witness excellence in others, when we get to see that shine so beautifully on them, and they come through some really hard work, and they see something they've accomplished, that's just, it's a rewarding day for me to be alive. I'm so grateful to be alive. I feel so deeply grateful to been a part of it, of course, but mostly it's just like awe and like, yes, for the human spirit. And, we can do more things, that's what it feels like. It reminds like we can do really cool things together. We can do all sorts of problem solving together. If from different points of view, if we come together, different age groups, different interest groups, but if you come together and use your best self to figure things out together, there's so many more magical things we could discover together and make together. So, when I get to see that, it's like the best. It's the best. I do want to take a shot of it and put it in everyone's arms. And most of the people who come to the book signings do get to see that. They leave with an epiphany. They leave going, I have never seen this. They're like, I've never felt these feelings I'm feeling watching this happen. And then they hear the child read the book to them and answer questions. I mean, it's just like, boom.
Boom. Oh, yeah. Those explosions are going off right now.
We're always like, please come to these book signings, because I promise you're going to walk away going, oh my gosh, you're going to walk away going like, what can I do? How can I help someone? How can I use my skill set to like improve the world? How can I, and it's not just me. It's like, I have to do it with someone else. I can't solve everything, but I'm not solving everything by myself. I'm figuring out some really cool stuff with a bunch of cool kids. Like, we're coming together and figuring things out.
Yeah, what a great feeling that must be. And for the child and for everyone who witnesses this beautiful moment of, this is an author sharing their story. It's not a sick child, it's an author. And may I ask you a question? Would you sign my book? All those things that go along with being an author makes you feel like $1 million when you have a published book. And if you get to talk about it, wow, what a bonus. We as adults, we feel that. Like people say, oh, you're a published author. But for a child who is suffering, a disease, a terminal disease or circumstances that we can't possibly understand completely, but for them to leave that and just become that author and the person under the spotlight, how beautiful is that? I get a warm feeling every time I'm thinking about it. Are you in Canada? Are you doing any work in Canada? I'm in Canada.
I'm going to, because I feel like I have a friend now who's interviewing me, and I think we should do something together up there. So I've been approached by internationally, actually Brazil, Canada, Japan. It's just at this point we're trying to get to a space where we can do that. But you know what? I definitely want more people to have the experiences I'm doing. So one of the things I've been doing is structuring the organization so that eventually, we actually did it in Utah a couple of years ago. I trained a bunch of professionals. So each team had a designer, a writer, a photographer, a videographer, and a fundraiser. And all those adults were professional skill set level, not just like dabblers. They were all really professional level. And so then, because that's the frequency that we're vibrating on. I'm like, no, if you get involved, it's not time for you to try to become a good writer, or no, it's like, no, you got to learn how to write and you got to go fast.
Right.
So what I hope to do is to go to other areas, different countries, and train teams, people, to then go do it, because I want other people to have this experience.
Yes.
And there's more people like me, like you. I mean, there's writers everywhere. There's designers everywhere. There's photographers everywhere. There's people, if they can't do that, they can raise money. It's so it's a very can-do, and that's what I'm interested in. I want you to do something. If you're going to work with me, I want to know what you can do really, really well. Right. That's what I want you to do.
Yeah.
And if that's your skill set or talent, that's what I want you to do. So I would, you and I can talk offline and talk about potential of Red Fred coming up to Canada. We have a good fellowship all over, but I always like to just say, let's just keep dreaming, and especially if people have interest and people skilled like yourself or other people like your listeners who may be listening.
Yeah, I'd love to continue our conversation offline and to see where this goes. And sir, Dallas, man, you've just warmed everybody who is listening to this podcast now is feeling that warmth and imagining what it would be like. Thank you so much. Number one, for your contribution to all those children, for all the wonderful work that you're doing. You are a saint, sir, and people love you, and just your energy, it's coming across. So you're excited, and we feel it, and it's just a beautiful thing. How can people get a hold of you? How can they purchase these books? Where's the website?
Great. Thanks for asking. Yeah, redfredproject.com, redfredproject.com, and then you could go to redfredproject.com/shop/about. You can just dabble in. You can read profiles of all of our kids. Some of them have mini documentaries, that film crews that documented it, which is pretty amazing. We're on social media platforms, of course, mostly Instagram at Red Fred Project. Those have links and profiles of the kids and artwork from the books and sayings and lessons and all this kind of beautiful stuff. So that's where we're mostly, and on Facebook. But yeah, if you want to be really delighted and enlightened, you need to really purchase a book. And again, these books, through the purchases of those, we take proceeds of that and get to send the kids royalty checks. So it's just a beautiful amplifier. Everyone wins. Everyone comes away better. Yeah.
For all of my listeners out here, I'm sure that you've been as touched by this podcast as I have, and about this man's work and all these wonderful children that he's talking about. So go to that website and buy books as gifts. Buy them for yourself. Buy them for your school libraries. Buy them for whatever, and just share in this miracle of giving back and giving something. And thank you so much, Dallas. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, sir.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another insightful episode. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and leave your comments. For more information, check out our website at www.inspireus.ca. Remember, it's not what happens to us that matters most. It's how we respond to what happens to us that does. Stay strong and resilient.